We wait for the light, but behold, obscurity for brightness, but we walk in darkness. We grope for the wall like the blind, and we grope as if we had no eyes. We stumble at noonday as in the night. We are in desolate places as dead men. We roar all like bears and mourn so like doves. We look for judgments, but there is none for salvation. But it is far off from us, for our transgressions are multiplied before thee, and our sins testify against us, for our transgressions are with us. And as for our... Hello, good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing today in the book of Proverbs, chapter 25, and we're going to pick up at verse 11, and I think we can just start right here. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold and pictures of silver, as an earring of gold and as an ornament of fine gold. I'm sorry, I added an as. And an ornament of fine gold. So is a wise reprover upon an obedient ear. As the cold of snow in the time of harvest, so is a faithful messenger to them that send him, for he refresheth the soul of his masters. The reading's a bit off. Well, let's sit back a bit. Whoso boasteth himself of a false gift is like clouds and wind without rain. By long forbearance is a prince persuaded, and a soft tongue breaketh the bone. Hast thou found honey? Eat so much as is sufficient for thee, lest thou be filled therewith, and vomit it. Withdraw thy foot from thy neighbor's house, lest he be weary of thee, and so hate thee. In one moment. Thank you, excuse me. I could just mute it, but then you'd watch me coughing. which is slightly more interesting than listening to it, I guess. Right. A man that beareth false witness against his neighbor is a maul, and a sword, and a sharp arrow. Confidence in an unfaithful man in time of trouble is like a broken tooth and a foot out of joint. As he that taketh away a garment in cold weather, and as vinegar upon nitre, so is he that singeth songs to a heavy heart. To an heavy heart. I'll do the whole one again. As he that taketh away a garment in cold weather, and as vinegar upon nitre, so is he that singeth songs to an heavy heart. If thine enemy be hungry, give him bread to eat, and if he be thirsty, give him water to drink. For thou shalt heap coals of fire upon his head, and the Lord shall reward thee. The north wind driveth away rain, so doth an angry countenance a backbiting tongue. It is better to dwell in the corner of a housetop than with a brawling woman and in a wide house. As cold waters to a thirsty soul, so is good news from a far country. A righteous man falling down before the wicked is as troubled fountain. A righteous man falling down before the wicked is as a troubled fountain and a corrupt spring. I'll get to your question at the end of the reading, which is about here. It is not good to eat much honey, for so men search their own glory is not glory. So for men to search their own glory is not glory. It is not good to eat much honey. So for men to search their own glory is not glory. Navel gazing. Yeah. He that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls. And it's like, it's fun, what do you think about the concept of the new earth? Well, I have talked about that. First of all, that goes, I am a millennialist, so I believe we have a period that comes before that new earth. But the new earth is to me, that seems like so distant. I know that it says, I've memorized it from Revelation 21. I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first time, the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And so there's a lot different going on there in the new heaven and the new earth. For as the new heavens and the new earth which I will make shall abide before me, saith the Lord, so shall your seed and your name remain. There's eternal life promised in the new heavens and the new earth. It's a place where righteousness abounds, right? It is where we will no longer be subject to sin, because we will no longer be subject to the deprivations, well, not deprivation, but the depravity of our body. And also, but there is something more. I do think, one of the things about the future and the eternity and the new heavens and the new earth, and as far as you probably, as far as will the planet, in a very materialist sense, as far as the new earth, an earth without a sea is the way it's described. And that's a very different kind of planet. It's almost like, but then again, but there are rivers of waters throughout, so, I don't, can you have a river world, because that's more like what it's described physically in that sense, because it's, I guess in a, I don't know, the earth is very dependent on the seas the way it is, but it also contributes to our climate being, it's a sink where this, heat energy goes, and we can be affected by the currents of it and stuff. I'm not a climatologist. I don't know what all that effect would be. I don't think anyone could really know what all that would do. The stuff you read about in Revelation 21. Because, unlike the millennium, there's a lot of speculation that goes on. But the new heaven and the earth, it's kind of straightforward. They will be his people, and he will be our God, and we will be his people. All of us together. In glory, in that sense, of course, most people understand that aspect. But yeah, the physical world, it'll be changed significantly. So, that's just a shorthand. Now, that as far as new heavens and new earth type thing, and I assume that's what you're referring to, and not the millennium and stuff like that. Yeah. It's the place we want to go. I often, just like ourselves, we don't know what we will be. And it says that we don't really understand what God has prepared for us. I do think there's something, God made creation because there's something good about creating things and experiencing them. And he wants to share that with us on some deep level, obviously, because that's the offer. He's bringing I'll grant you to sit with me in my throne. Well, goodness, that's quite a thing. It's like, I'm not worthy to sit with God in his throne. It's like, but that's the intimacy to which we are invited. And I think that is the most critical part of the new heavens and the new earth. And of all things, it's like, that's why the kingdom of God is now and it is within you, because that is the part of eternity that we can touch on right now, as we can, we begin our relationship with God as those in the womb, we're blind. We're like in darkness. We see through a glass darkly, and we are ignorant, but God reveals himself to us and makes us his sons. It's a wonderful thing. The word fitly spoken. Now, I remember we were looking at the Hebrew of that a little, and I think, actually, I was looking at the NIV, and it was fitly, that's interesting. Speech, no, it's interesting. Hold on, I'm going to bring it up here right now. I'm not in the right place. There we go. Okay, I thought this was interesting. I didn't click on it yet, but verse 11, yeah. A word fitly spoken. The word fitly. The word is just word. It's debar, which is the normal word for speech or word. In Hebrew, you'd run across it all the time. This fitly spoken is debar again. So, and this word is ophan, which means a wheel. And so it's obviously some sort of figurative use. In fact, it's not, let's see, how many times does it get used in the Bible? Quite a few. Look at this. Goes on and on. It's 35. That's enough to get a sense. But it also has a very small entry in the Brown Driver Briggs, so I feel not intimidated. The wheels in Ezekiel's vision The wheel of its chariot. The wheels of the 10 bases beneath the layers. So is this just wrong? What? Okay, Proverbs. All right, where's the other proverb reference? Okay, they don't. Is this just a mistake? Okay, well, I'm not going to get stumbling over it. 20. It doesn't list the proverb here. This could be a linking error. Okay, that's probably wrong. Fitly spoken. That can't be right. It says it's linked wrong. I should contact. How much? I should have my Strong's Concordance right here for a backup. But anyways, that's a problem. But I can figure out another way around this. You know how? Did they get it wrong in every case? There we are in YouTube Studio. Great. Thankfully, they block your little key number and all that, right? All right. There's another way around this. We just go to a different version of the Bible that has a concordance, a different concordance, and we find out what number it is. Let's cite Strong's NASB. There we go. I'll say verse. That's not Proverbs. We need 25. There's a workaround. This is actually kind of almost an interesting lesson in like how do you work around the problem like that without going to if you don't have the book. In right circumstances. Okay, it's very close. It's Ophen, 655. See? Yeah, so you got to watch out. Ophan, very close to Ophen. And I don't know if that's an error in the Strong's Concordance or if it's an error. Because I remember I used to make corrections in my Strong's Concordance because I'd find transposed numbers and stuff like that where a little mistake was made. That happens in books, you know. Now we go. It meant circumstance. Notice it's very similar to that circumstance. Wheel. They're probably related. From an unused root meaning to revolve, a turn, a season. There's a time for every purpose under heaven, but it's only used once in the entire Bible. Proverbs 25:11. Wow, this is the only occurrence. I do like the fact that it seems to be at least confusable, even though when I look at it, Ophan, let me look at the Hebrew spelling. Well, they're not. There's a little difference. Yeah. So, circumstance, condition, in the right time. You know, when the right word at the right time. You know, we knew what that is like a apple of gold. I still think it's, you know, like I said, it's worth going to see that. And King James Version strong. Okay, I want to go to 25. I don't know why I see what I've done wrong. Strong's. There we go. I just want to set it back. Okay. Now we'll go back here. And then the next clause is very similar. A wise reprover upon an obedient ear. Because good advice, hey, you know, the right words at the right time, yeah, it is often a beautiful thing like apples of gold and settings of silver, which is that picture. We looked that up at the end last time just because I was curious. And you see the same metaphor with the earrings and the ornaments here, right? You know, it's very similar. It's like it's a beautiful thing. But sometimes people aren't wise and they don't recognize. Yeah, well, the King James is self more accurate. I just mean that the website had an inaccurate linking between the two words on Bible Hub. It's Bible Hub's accuracy that I'm mostly having a problem with. The word fitly spoken is like apples of gold and pictures. Okay, an earring of gold and an ornament of fine gold, so is a wise reproof upon an obedient ear. Because those who, when we don't receive instruction, when the reproof is not wanted, you know, like I said, that's casting your pearls before swine. In fact, this is the same metaphor because we have jewels, just like Christ compared, you know, casting out your pearls before swine. You know, we got to be careful about the way we use our words. But at the same time, you know, we're called upon not to judge one another. You know, so like I said, I try to be generous, but also not foolish. We want to be wise as serpents, but harmless as doves, right? You don't want to do anything. We want to use wisdom. We want to look at complexities of things. We want to plan and devise good methods to, good advice, right? And that's all good. But we have to be able to receive it even when it's negative. Good advice that sounds good, like someone boosting you, they give you like a, hey, good job, hey, we all love that, right? That's an ornament of gold. But only the wise who receive instruction understand that reproof is also just as good as gold. I mean, it's as precious as any positive thing that someone could say to you to build you up. And it's good to be both built up positively and to be exercised. I don't want to call it to be beaten down negatively. That's not, no. But it's good to be exercised by things that try us. That's why I put it, that push us a bit. The fiery trial, don't be shocked at the fiery trial that comes against you, because that's the way life is. That's okay. All right. Whoso boasts, it's okay. There's a lot of the King James, a lot of people dislike it for some reason. I love it. That's why I use the text from the King James when I teach. It's the one I'm most familiar with, and I like working with it. Because you do get the most accurate, like straightforward translation. There may be better one. I haven't compared all of them, but I like it and I'm familiar with it, and it's the one, and it's beautiful. Whoso boasteth himself as the cold of snow in the time of harvest, right? So is a faithful messenger to them that send him, for he refresheth the soul of his masters. Yeah, you got it. We don't really understand how important that sort of faithful messaging is, because we have a world where communications are so much more amped up. But I mean, we can just take it to another level. Like we consider, like, just, it's true. I was trying to compare it to modern times. I was like, okay, the media. Well, they're faithful to their masters, are they not? And they must please their masters, because people in the media who sit there and lie to us are paid incredible amounts of money to do so. That shows, I mean, when someone does a good job, you pay them a lot of money, right? So, they're pleasing their masters, but they're faithful to message on behalf of those who are their masters and those who pay the bills. That's why, companies that don't make consumer products will advertise on news shows because they want to control the content of what you get to hear. And so we have to understand, ideally, there are all these journalistic ideals. And I almost wonder if there's almost like a mythology built up around journalism, and journalists are so, there are movies made about them exposing things. And they can, people who do genuine work like that, I do admire, and I look for that. For people who are genuinely reporting things that serve something that I care about, which is the truth. You know what I mean? So when I see people that serve the truth, when they're being truthful consistently, that is someone, not necessarily someone I trust, but like, that's something I can listen. That's something that pleases me, because my master is the truth. Jesus Christ is the truth. And so when people serve the truth, and of course, the ultimate truth is not just just true things like true reporting and all that. That is a much lesser form of what the truth is, that Christ is Lord, and to the glory of the Father, and that every knee will bow to him. That's the truth. Okay, that's primarily the truth, and the truth I serve. But there are lesser forms of the truth, like things that are going on in the world. I want to know the true report. And if, those that do not serve the truth, I have no use for it, because I need to know what's really going on. Otherwise, I don't have to. I mean, then I can have no opinion. But as far as if I'm going to render a thought about it, or somehow, or vote in a direction to lead the country, I need to know quite a bit about what's up. Especially since our leaders are so ignorant. So we need faithful messengers are very important. I'm sure that word messenger is the word that's also translated angel. I'm just sure because they don't have a separate word. And let's take a look at it real quick. Let's take the lottery, okay? Is he right? Is he wrong? Messenger, right click, open a new tab. No, it's not. It's not malak, it's seer. It's not the word for angel. It's an envoy or messenger. So I struck out there. I can point to me being wrong once again. So this is not the word generally for angel, which I would expect for messenger. But anyways, but ambassador, hinge, well, whatever, as pressing on turning. Also a throw as physical or mental pressure. Also a herald. It's interesting that a ambassador would be the same word as a hinge, because it's an important position. Things turn on the ambassador. He's the point of contact between two working pieces of the world, so to speak. That hinge between them. And having that man be a faithful one, and in all things, like I said, in the intersection between truth, you can break it down into different aspects that we could look at. So let's move on to the next one. It's kind of clear. Whoso boasteth himself, whoso boasteth himself of a false gift is like clouds of wind without rain. I wonder what that false gift means. Now, it's a false bribe. Well, let's look at it. Let's go back again here. False. Sheker. Deception, disappointment, falsehood. Okay. A deceptive and gift is mata, a gift. So the interpretation thereof. Well, because I'm trying to think of like a false gift, like a gift given. Like under what when does a gift become false? I think of like the Trojan horse. There's a false gift, right? Except clouds and wind without rain. It seems like an understatement, but even so. But it's a boasting of a false gift, so it's not so treacherous. But there's some deceit involved in this. False in the sense of deceptive. Let's look at sheker. Deception, disappointment, falsehood, deceit. From shakar, an untruth, by implication, a sham. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I got, sometimes, like someone gives you something and they make their boast of it, but it's like their boast is bigger than the thing they gave. And it's like, hey, that thing I gave you that was basically, you're garbage. And I've experienced that to some degree. I've never had anyone boast over much. I don't, I'm thankful people give me stuff that they intend to donate. That's fine because I have a big family. So people say, hey, would you like some of the stuff? And I go through it and then I donate it, whatever we don't want. And I've never had anyone boast in it, but I get it. Like if someone were to hold that over you, like, oh, I've, all the stuff I've given, it's like, yeah, I passed it on to charity because it's like, it wasn't that great a gift, but there's nothing like, but whatever. And so I like here that it says without a cause. There's sort of like that's kind of the feeling I get from this of the false gift, that it's something that's given and it's not, the boast is somehow getting above what it's actually worth. Is my estimation of what that means. And of course, yeah, it's all talk. Clouds and wind without rain is a metaphor for, right? It's like, well, you'd think there'd be rain, but there isn't. It's like because of it looks like there's rain, but no rain. And it's like his mouth is speaking great things about what he gave, but there's no great gifts that he gave. By long forbearing is a prince persuaded, and the soft tongue breaketh the bone. I like that. That's as the song come out. My words are violence, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I use that. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean harsh words, though it can. But a soft word that's true spoken in the right moment, at the critical, there is like that gentle touch, so to speak. Well, like, they talk about like the 1-inch punch, or like there is a gentle hand that can be very simultaneously cruel, as far as not cruel because there's no intent to be cruel, but on the one who's receiving, like it says, it heaps coals of fire on their head, the kindness shown. And so a soft tongue can even break bones. And of course, the word of the Lord is the most powerful thing you can put on your tongue, and it divides in sunder even the soul and spirit. And it can indeed, as Ananias and Sapphira died by the word of the Lord at the feet of Peter, it can kill. I kill and I make alive. That's what the Lord says. I wound and I heal. He does all those things. By long forbearing, patience. The word forbear in English is a little archaic for us, but it means to use patience. I wonder let's see in the what the Hebrew is going to say. By long forbearing. I love the word from where they get forbearing. It's kind of funny. I remember looking this up years ago and being kind of like, wow, it's kind of interesting the way language works. The word literally means nostril. A nostril, nose, face, anger. And I suppose the nostril as the flaring of the nostril. The nose or nostril, hence the face, and occasionally a person, also from the rapid breathing of passion, ire, or anger. So interesting the way they use that. Yeah. So again, and I'm assuming that's the negative, meaning it's saying by not giving place to anger. That's to forbear anger. And that's what forbear means, to refrain, to not do something. I forbear, whether they will hear or forbear. Here, yeah. Yeah, I sometimes look at the NIV to get an interpretation, because it's a little more of an interpretation. The King James is more of a direct translation, and sometimes it leaves us perplexed because they don't try to interpret some of these strange idioms from Hebrew and stuff, and so it comes out a little weird. But it's also, I think, more interesting for that very reason, because it's more like the original. I don't want to just hear it the way we talk today necessarily. I want it more formally. I like the formality of the King James language. I do. I don't even mind talking about it, because it is beautiful. And we do frequently go over to the NIV, and take a look at it for just to consult. If I want an interpretation, I go get one, That's all right. Because they're better scholars than me. I don't know what I'm doing. I know as much as I know. By long forbearing, by not giving place to anger, by not giving place to those feelings, whatever the justice you think you deserve, I'll render to him according to his works. Like it says, you don't do that. That's why when I was thinking about Israel, it's like you do not, they say, oh, they hurt us. It's like you can't go after people's family. If someone does something to me, it doesn't mean I go after their whole family. That's just the way it works. We're not innocent bystanders. There's a limit. And revenge just should be right out. And we're Christians, not heathen. I was a heathen, or I was born. That's my I was born Christian, actually, to tell you the truth. Because he was always my God. It just wasn't until later that I really committed myself. Because I didn't know. Sometimes that's what it takes. We have to go to dark places sometimes before we realize how badly we need God. All right. So, by long patience, you get what you want. Don't get angry. Well, and also I'll tell you that this is like a piece of. This reminds me of the advice I gave to the young man in wrestling, to the referees. Don't get angry when you get a bad call. Show patience. You could indicate a little frustration, but don't be all passive aggressive, and don't be angry. Don't lash out, because that never helped anything. They're in charge. Getting angry at the person in charge who's more powerful than you, you raging at them doesn't really do anything. If you want to persuade a prince, anyway, you meaning someone who's a ruler. I think God, and that's the thing is also like, that's the way I look at it with our country too. I feel like the American people, you have to be patient and persuade them. Now, as far as, we don't have princes, as far as, some people think they're princes. I don't want to persuade them. I want to move them out of the way because they don't belong there. We don't have princes in this country, but there are situations where we have people who are absolute sort of dictators. And the wisdom in that situation is you have to be patient and not get angry. And persuade the prince with a soft tongue is the strongest thing you can use, is the strongest and best tool to patiently and quietly explain yourself in that circumstance especially. So hast thou found honey? Well, eat so much is sufficient for thee, lest thou be filled therewith and vomit. Too much of a good thing. That we know that too much of a good thing can be bad. Have you found honey? Honey is sweet. Right? And it's many things in life are sweet and tasteful. And it is very tempting to indulge in them. But that's one of the things that I talk about heaven. And you were asking about the new earth. Sometimes people, they talk about the marriage supper of the Lamb and they take that quite literally and they start talking about heaven in terms of, I remember hearing this guy talk about it. Oh, it's like a banquet and you can eat all the pastries you want and never get fat. And I really don't think it's like that. Seems like, you mean we mean the whole stuff against gluttony and stuff is just out the window suddenly? It's like, no, it is good to enjoy good things, but to do so without giving oneself over much passion to it, I guess, or I don't know. Because there is a limit of too much of a good thing as far as when it comes to indulgence. Even with exercise, bodily exercise, that profits a little. Don't exercise your life away. It's like there's more to life than getting exercise. There's more to life than eating. There's more to life than making love. There's more to life than all the good things in life. There's hard things to do. And if you've found the good of life, don't allow yourself to be overly consumed by it, because and I think that explains why a lot of times you see people who get rich and famous and whatever, and they're still incredibly unhappy. And all that indulgence that never satisfies. And in fact, eventually you just start puking it up. It just becomes, literally you can see things, it works like that, with things like alcohol, literally with things like too much of a good thing like honey. But it's a metaphor for, and when I say too much of a good thing, I mean the indulgent sense of good, not in the sense, too much sleep is good, but too much sleep is not good. Work is good. Too much work. No, you must take rest. Too much rest. There is an appropriate amount of all things. There's a place for sweetness. And if God gives it to you, then be thankful for it. But be not, consumed. Eat what is sufficient. There's a sufficiency. Withdraw your foot from your neighbor's house, lest he be weary of you and hate you. That's something that can happen. I've never been never been much of a socialite. So I would occasionally drop by my neighbor's house, but it was so infrequent. They always seemed delighted to see me. So there we go. It would be every couple of years I would drop by. And then less frequently as time went on because I just got busy. But I don't go often to my neighbor's house. I remember there was a time I was borrowing my neighbor's lawnmower for a while and I didn't want to keep doing it. So I made sure I stopped doing it. It was a couple times and then it's like I really got out of that business quickly. And it's just that it's good to have friends. It's good to be sociable. But if you are too often at your neighbor's house, especially if you don't really have that close relationship, a lot of times people don't realize, maybe that someone's not enjoying their company or something. I don't know. It's just that, you can be too much in someone's space. It's good to be mindful of that. because you don't want to. Because that's the thing. I don't. Especially if you want to preach the gospel. Yeah, I wouldn't want to come to my neighbor's house every day and annoy him if he didn't want to hear it. I would just rather live a life that they could see the light of Christ emanating from me without me having to say so. That's not always perfectly possible. But it's perfectly possible, but it's not always. I haven't always been able to live up to that. But that is, we want to emulate Christ. We want to live our lives in a way that reflects his influence on our life. It should change us. Ever changing from glory to glory. From righteousness to righteousness. From faith to faith. Again, not to be confused with the work of salvation. I'm talking about sanctification. Salvation is his work. And we are his workmanship also. That's sanctification. It's all his work. That's the beauty of it. We just get to participate. I like that. So a man that bears false witness against his neighbor is a maul and a sword and a sharp arrow. I assume a maul is just a hammer, and that's just to translate it that way. I don't feel particularly curious. I'm going to peek. It's a scatterer. I don't know if it means maul. Now I am bringing it up just because I found it kind of interesting. Mephitis, it's only used here. One occurrence. Scatterer, disperser. I get it like the way it would smash rocks and make them, maybe. So whatever, one who scatters. But as a metaphor, a hammer in fact, the hammer breaks the rock in pieces. Like, is that not the word like a hammer that breaks the rock in pieces? Isn't the sword of the Lord, right? But also, sword. The word of the Lord is a sword because it can do damage, it can cut, and such. But that's not to say it's the only thing in the world that cuts. Now, the wounds of the enemy can be, the Lord, of course, can deflect them, heal them, all that. But the enemy can make wounds. Yeah, and when people bear false witness against you, like against the Lord, they tried to bring forth false witnesses, And the purpose is for what? To destroy you. To destroy you. And you see that in society. They lie about people to destroy them. One need only be accused these days, and anonymously at that. And some of these people that are accused of like bad behavior, they've behaved badly in the past, and so it's sort of like, hey, your past is catching up with you, and it's hard to defend yourself when you've been a bad boy. And that's it. And that sometimes that goes with the territory, but also, it's not always the case. Some people, have been accused of wrongdoing falsely, or they're given, you have a position. Like, when I was sharing with someone the lyrics to my song about the burden of Israel, and they were like, oh, an anti-Semitic poem. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's the furthest thing from my mind. And that's how people think. They immediately reach for the top shelf. They want to accuse you of the worst things, which is kind of scary in a sense. Not that we fear, but we know that when people start doing that, when they start, when everyone who opposes someone becomes like the Nazis, Hitler, when they start talking about you that way, when you're clearly not. It's because they want to put you in that category so that they can do unto you as they thought should have been done unto him. And that's why it's dangerous. I shouldn't say scary, dangerous. It is dangerous. Especially for them, because their souls are in imminent danger, because that is very wicked. False accusations. Like when I talk about taking up the sword of the Lord, it's mindfully, it's with fear. Because it's the truth, right? The sword of truth, the word of the Lord. And when someone's a false witness, they're claiming, I got the sword of truth right here, man. I'm a judge, or I'm going to help you judge, but I'm going to tell you what happened. I'm going to tell you what happened. Oh, yeah, I got the truth right here, That's what a false witness is. They come forth saying, I have the truth. I bear the sword. I will cut through the lies and down to the nitty gritty of what's really going on. I'm going to give it to you. They are a sword. That's a deadly weapon, man. Someone willing to do that, that is a deadly weapon. But God sees you and will break your arrow. And your sword will be bent. And you'll all be exposed. You know, it's like you also, that arrow is pointing at your own soul, buddy. Confidence in an unfaithful man in time of trouble is like a broken tooth. I've had a couple of broken teeth. I don't like it. I don't know what else to say about it, you know. A foot out of joint. I have like a feather, like, I need to, something's tickling my nose badly. I may have to go to give me a moment here. All better. Nice to breathe. So, an unfaithful man in time of trouble. Yeah, that's the thing is like, in time of trouble, a man should be faithful to his principles. And that's what was disturbing to me about the pandemic, is to realize how unfaithful, one, our leaders were to principles, two, my fellow countrymen. Especially because I live in such a rural area. It's like, I know that it's incredibly red. But I only saw maybe 1 in 100 people who would give any resistance to what was being done. Like I said, I went to a church because most of them wouldn't have church. I'm like, wow, how is it in Roman times we met in tombs when they forbid it? I mean, I remember they were saying, what would Romans think of us today? I'm like, I tell you what, I know what they think of Christians today. They think, these are Christians? The Christians we knew were like, man, they would die before they would renounce the Lord. Well, most of them, some of them did renounce. There was a whole, not everyone died for their faith. Some people would renounce their faith. Not like it never happened. I think they had a name for it. I forgot. There were the people who died, and they were called the confessors, and those who, in order to live, saved themselves and denied. I forgot what they were called, but when they wanted to come back to the church, there was a whole debate about whether they would ever let those people back in. Man, my history's too shady on that to really go say much more than that. But yeah, you need your feet under you when you're walking around. That's one thing for sure. I understand that metaphor. The broken tooth. Well, I cope, so I'm always like, but like, and it is a problem, especially when you can't chew there anymore, or it becomes a constant annoyance, right? Foot out of joint. You can't properly, you're not a whole man with your foot out of joint as far as like activity wise. I mean, that's a real crippling thing. And a man needs to be faithful in time. And man who is you can't put confidence in people that are not faithful when trouble comes, because they will betray you. And that's, like I said, that was sort of like, I feel like it was almost like a warning shot. You could see how easily people can all be manipulated into acting in a certain way. And it's not going to be, if you live to see the end times, what you're going to see with the Antichrist and the mark of the beast isn't going to be much different. As far as just people are all going to be, what do you mean you don't, you want to go to the grocery store, it's like you can't buy or sell unless you're going to be the right, and it's going to be a lot stronger, because we're not talking about some oogie boogie disease. We're talking about someone, they're convinced that they have a new God. At least that's the way it's written. The world's going to be worshiping him as God. He that taketh away a garment in cold weather, and his vinegar upon nitre. Well, we're going to definitely go to the NIV for that one, because maybe they'll give us... That one I need to have updated. I like the way it sounds. Definitely reads beautifully. But I need a little help there with that interpretation. So let's look at the NIV on that verse. What time are we at? Oh, 44 minutes. Awesome. We got a lot... Oh, wrong screen. Here we are. Okay. Here's the NIV version. Broken tooth, like one who, like vinegar poured on a wound, is one who sings songs to a heavy heart. Seems a bit harsh. Vinegar upon the niter. I thought maybe it was going to be like fizzing, like you put vinegar on baking soda or something like that, and bicarbonate of soda. Isn't there nitrogen in there? No, bicarbonate. No, it's carbon. Anyways, I thought maybe it was going to have. I don't know if niter has anything to do with nitrogen. That's another thing. At least the King James. Let's find out what that Hebrew word was. So, vinegar upon a wound. Well, I wasn't expecting. That's kind of harsh. As a musician, I feel, well, and what I would say is this. Yeah, you don't want happy songs, but sometimes when you're sad, a sad song, it's not so good, honestly, because it can make you feel even sadder. So, I don't know. But sometimes it's good to get those feelings out. I'm always a little torn between feeling my feelings and getting, as far as getting them out or trying to bottle them up. If you bottle them up successfully, then that's fine, I guess. I don't know. Sometimes, it's good to let things out. Sometimes it's good to be able to just hang on to it. I don't know. Because it's like, it doesn't necessarily make the things go away. Whether you pour out your feelings or whether you hold them in, doesn't make a difference most of the time, except in how you act about it. I mean, like I'm saying, like if you're just crying in your prayer closet or whatever, it's like there's no, like I said, that's just between you and God. That's not like world changing. Wait a second. Niter. It says carbonate of soda here. It literally says carbonate of soda, which is what I said. I should have just gone right to the Hebrew. The NIV let me down. Natron or carbonate of soda. I was just saying that. I did not know that. Niter. Okay. Lye. Is that lye? Soda. Well, like vinegar on soda. Okay, it's like a fizzing. I think it's like, it's not something. It means it's not melodious. I mean, I can't hear the happy melody. I just hear white noise because that's what it sounds like when you have vinegar and soda. And I thought that makes more sense. Because it's like it's not pouring vinegar on a wound. And NIV, you stink there. I'm going to say that's no good. That doesn't even make sense to me. No, because it's just too harsh. It's way too harsh. Because what was the other one? Taketh away a garment in cold weather? Well, that's pretty nasty too, right? Taketh away a garment in cold weather. He that singeth songs to a heavy heart. Well, yeah, also, even if you sing songs, like I said, sing a sad song to a heavy heart, you'll make their heart heavier. Sing a happy song, it's the same thing. Yeah, I've had times when people like trying to cheer me up only makes it worse. Sometimes that's the way it is with a heavy heart. It's not so easy to cheer them up. It's not obvious what to do. Well, comfort people. How do you comfort them? With sympathy, with understanding, I guess. With listening to them. Making sure make sure it's about them, not you. That's something I always tell myself because I want to make sure. I often am reflective, and so I want to make sure I don't constantly reflect everything in my own terms when I talk to people. Oh, I've experienced that. It's like, well, maybe not exactly, right? Or even if I have, maybe I just let them tell me about their experience until they ask me to tell them about mine. I don't know. So, if thine enemy be hungry, give him bread to eat. If he be thirsty, give him water to drink, for thou shalt heap coals of fire upon his head, and the Lord shall reward thee. But again, like it says, don't take pleasure in their pain. And so the Lord already said that. Do not take pleasure in the pain of others. He doesn't. It makes the Lord stop. And pain is good to some degree. So, we want to be stoic about it. I mean, basically, we want to be very. Because it is. There's an objective side of love. There's a feeling love, right? But there's also the love, the benevolence which God shows to us, which is about love in action. Things that bring us to everlasting life. That's the kind of love I need. And so I want to love other people so that they would live. It's like, and even if they are my enemy, because my enemy, who is your neighbor? Well, your enemy is your neighbor also, and to some degree. So you need to treat him as such. As far as if he's at your mercy, show mercy. It'll please the Lord. It doesn't say if your enemy's hungry, starve him out. If he's thirsty, good. Make him feel thirsty. I mean, Israel doesn't believe in this wisdom. They don't believe in this wisdom. People say, well, they can't. They can't, blah, blah, blah. I always think it's funny when people make excuses for things. And it's because Christians want prophecy to be fulfilled. And careful. When we're like so anxious for prophecy to be filled, there's all kinds of prophecies, and a lot of them are not good. What if you are anxious for the day of the Lord? It's not necessarily something you want to be like, let's go. It's like, I want the Lord to come. Yes, I want God's kingdom. But you understand, to get there is like going through birth. It's a tremendously painful process for the world. And some of us may be killed, as it's written. I trust that. I trust the Lord to take us through it. I will not fear, but the world will fear. They will know fear. If many of them already do, and it's not the way to go. The way of peace is how we should move forward. Blessed are the peacemakers. Yeah, you will heap coals of fire at his head, and it's good for him. It's good for him. Don't rejoice in his pain, but rejoice that it might lead him to repentance. And that's it. It's like, I want to be unemotionally attached to that. As far as I don't want to have any joy. If I feel sorry for him, that's good. That's fine. Let me pity my enemy, that God may pity me because I was his. He already has pitied me, of course. And I know that because I have faith in the Lord Jesus, and that's how you can know that also. When you have faith in the Lord Jesus, you can know that the mercy of God is upon you. The north wind driveth away rain, so doth an angry countenance a backbiting tongue. Yeah. When you face the person talking about you behind your back, when they got to face you and they see that you're confronting them, with an angry countenance, don't give place to wrath. But I'll tell you what, you can let people know you're not. This is something. If I was not a godly man, I'd be very angry right now. You know what I mean? Just like I tell my children, you tempt me to pride. You know what I mean? If I actually thought I had anything to do with it, other than the small part I played as your father, we have to maintain our integrity. But also be angry and sin not. Nothing wrong with confronting people. It's nothing wrong with telling them this is unacceptable. This is not the way we do things. This is wrong. And you can say so quite clearly. And make them know. And you have a fierce, not fierce countenance, but a bit of an angry countenance. Nothing wrong with being serious. Some people call it righteous indignation. Okay, but, keep a handle on it. Keep a lid on it. But just because, he scowled at me. Oh, big deal. I scowled at you. Oh. Sticks and stones may break my bones. What does that angry countenance do? I was afraid. I didn't say anything. I just was unhappy. And don't let it rule you. Don't let it overtake you. But there is a place for some, to tell people off. Especially a backbiting tongue. When people do things, because things like that, it's not a backbiting tongue. I don't need to get into fisticuffs with somebody over something like that. It's not like they came over and, hurt my family or something. Someone just talking about me. I can face them down. Nothing wrong with that. At least in my opinion, because I sometimes you have to stand up, and it's not, like Jesus standing up about, my house should be called a house of prayer, but you made it a den of thieves. And believe me, his countenance was probably a little angry. Though he may have gone around with a smile on his face, most of the time. I don't know. But I would think in that moment, he would have put on a frowny face as he's driving the money changers out of the temple, or at least one that was a little angry. Let him know. I wouldn't want them. He wouldn't want him to. Here I come, guys. I got the whip. Do you see what I'm intending? I think he would give them a look to let them know, you better get moving before I get there. You know what I mean? I want you to see on my face what's going to happen if I get within an inch of you. You can see on my face, the Lord. So, I mean, he in his anger, he drove them out. It's appropriate. Sometimes you got to drive them out, man. That's not going to, they're not going to hurt. It doesn't give any, so that was his house. He had every right to drive him out of there. If I don't feel myself in any position like that. Like I have no place where I feel like, oh, that's my house. I mean, this is my house. I mean, so if some people came here and started spouting nonsense, I'd drive them out. Started putting up, whatever. It gets ridiculous. Making merchandise of people for the Lord's sake. I already hate that. I already verbally drive them out. We are constantly railing against that. The money changers. They always got to make the Word of God a racket, Always got to be a racket. Nobody can do it for pleasure. It's always got to be collecting donations. Like I say, even the ones the Shepherd's Chapel, Armory, he didn't beg, as he said, but they took donations all the time and they asked for them. Every single broadcast, they were asking for donations. Nothing wrong. And, you shall not muzzle the ox that treads the corn. A lot of pastors do a lot of good work for their congregations, counseling and stuff. If they earn it, then they deserve every penny. But if they don't, they don't. And nobody deserves to get rich off the gospel. That's disgusting. That's why I had a donation thing on my website years ago. Now years ago, I can say it years ago, because I took it down because I just don't want to. Because I didn't like having people say things. They tried to get to me and it got to me. And I was like, you know what? I won't let you have that ever again. At least, like I said, unless I needed it. Could I use it? Yeah, I could use it, of course. But I'll get by. The Lord provides. It's more precious to me to do this for nothing than it is to serve my needs. I've made it this far without having to, depend on other people. Because even when I used to take donations, they were very infrequent. So I've never collected more than a couple $100 in a year. All right. So giving bread. We're almost down here. North wind. Right. The woman again. Yeah. Everyone loves these. It's better to dwell on the corner of a housetop than with a brawling woman. Yeah. And, obviously, and I've said this before, wives, do not fight your husbands. You need to, don't fight him on his terms. You know what I mean? Shouldn't be through argument. I just told my wife, tell me it'll make you happy. I was like, that's the best argument in the world. It would make me so happy if you would do this. Or could you please just ask? I don't like arguments. Meaning, especially me, and maybe I'm saying this for my own sake, because when someone comes to me with reasons and stuff, I think of counter reasons. I think of, hey, we really need this, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, no, blah, 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 blah. It's like, there have to be, it's always better to, you get more flies with honey, as they say, than you do with vinegar or whatever. It is better to approach your husband in a respectful and, in a way that's that acknowledges him. And he'll be, flattered by that in some way. As far as if it's a point of disagreement. When it comes to the things of God, if it's a disagreement there, it's like that becomes a problem. Especially with core things. Don't get caught up in my husband and I don't agree on the millennium. It's like, it's okay. You guys can just have that out. Don't worry about that. That's not too bad. Like I said, I have a lot of specific views on that, but I don't consider them dogmatically, and I don't think anyone really can, because there's if we get too dogmatic about the Lord's coming, think about what that happened when he came the first time. So many people were blind because they had this sort of dogmatic idea of like what the Messiah was going to do. And because they had all these scriptures. And so we also have all these scriptures about what Messiah and what the kingdom is going to be like. And if we really teased out what it all means, well, I haven't, and I haven't run into anyone else I thought did. Okay, so I don't know. A lot of a man's pleasure comes from his relationship with his wife. If he has a good relationship with her, that they're not, a brawling is an exaggeration of a hyperbole of the worst situation. A woman who's literally a brawler. And hey, I remember my kids telling me a story about there was a guy. I don't want to give too much, even though I don't like him. I'm not going to give any specific information about him. But anyways, there was this guy and his wife, was physical with him, abusing him, and stuff at home. And, and he didn't fight back, of course, because, but people made fun of him because of that, which I found to be reprehensible. I'm like, what do you want him to do? Hit her back? It's like if someone is going to be violent on you, and it's your wife, your husband, it's very difficult to deal with, especially if you're a man and you're the victim of violence. Because, one, you're not supposed to react to it. Two, you're supposed to be big and tough. It's like, and you should take it, or what? There's this implication like that you're kind of less of a man if you have a woman who's physical and violent, which is not fair. Because a lot of times, just like women get involved with men, they don't realize they're going to be physical and violent. They don't necessarily show that early on. And if a guy does show that early on, you should take that as a sign. If he's getting violent with you before you're married, you probably already had sex with him, which it means you're already in the wrong, If he gets violent with you before you've consummated the relationship, don't ever get as far away from that guy as possible. Good job on you not having, slept with him yet. Or her. Yeah, you shouldn't, you should find out more about people before you commit to them. That's why I said to my kids, you gotta rule people out. You gotta look for reasons that you shouldn't get involved with them emotionally. Find those reasons as soon as possible. Instead of trying to be like, let's try to be likable and let's try to start something. What are you starting? You don't know what you're starting. You'd be starting 5 years of misery or a lifetime of misery, but getting hitched up with the wrong person. It's, I'm definitely pro-marriage, but I don't think it is for everybody. Some people, like Jesus even said, some people are eunuchs from the womb. Some people are eunuchs for men's sake, and some are eunuchs for the kingdom of God. Or they're made by men, eunuchs. Some eunuchs are made by men, some are eunuchs from the womb, and some are for the kingdom of heaven's sake. And it doesn't necessarily mean a literal eunuch. There's also a figurative eunuch, meaning you just abstain. Though honestly, if I was going to abstain, I'd rather just be a full-on eunuch at that point, because it would probably help, as far as that's what they say. Not that I would ever consider such, because it's against the law, and I don't believe, even though I don't follow the law, I take as good advice: do not mutilate your body. I pierced my ear in my youth, and I scarred my arm and stuff. I shouldn't have done that. But I never got tattoos, and I'm glad I didn't. And some people don't regret their tattoos, and that's fine. It's a matter of conscience. I don't judge you. But I do think it's a good advice. Don't do it. Don't. Just don't disfigure your body. Just let it be the way it is. We just take care of it. Like if you want to change your body, get fit. That would be a great way to change your body, to exercise your body, make sure you're in good shape. If the Lord needed you to walk somewhere, I want you to walk. We're in the tribulation. There's no more gas. There's no more internet. I need you to walk to town and tell them. What if the word of the Lord comes out and then I say, "Oh Lord, I can't walk. I'm too fat." I don't want to be that guy. I'm too old. No, I don't want to be that guy. So like I'm saying, you wanna do something to your body, make it in the best shape you can. That's something you can do to your body. Take as good care of it as you can, because it is the temple of the Lord until the Lord come. For your sake at least. You know what I mean? You got to regard it as such, because we are His body, His many-membered body, and that is His temple. Because it is the people that make it up. It's the ultimate. That temple stuff is just symbolic. It's us. We together with Him in that relationship is where God dwells. Cold waters to a thirsty soul, so is good news from a far country. We're going to finish this chapter. Yeah, well, yeah. It's, especially back then, like I said, when they didn't have the communication, but still, even with the communication, all the bad news out there, man, there's so much bad news. It gets to me sometimes, I admit, because I feel that as a teacher and someone who's familiar with the word, as a father, I have to do something with the gifts I have about the things that are going on in my generation. Like, so for me, that's like songwriting and stuff. But at times, it becomes very heavy because of all the awful things that happen and are going on. And all when I see how off the rails it really is getting with our leadership, we're spiraling down the drain as far as towards this, not towards, like, in this war that is World War III going on. I mean, I already started the song like a year ago. I mean, because it's like it was beginning and it's still going, and it ain't gonna. I don't know where it's stopping. I would love it to be not. I would love it to all. I would just peter out. But I don't see how that happens. Not now. When you put too much blood on the ground, things have a way of getting out of control. And you want prophecies, man. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of blood in the prophecies. There's a lot of blood, and I don't know why people are anxious for blood. I'll rejoice because my Lord is drawing nigh, but, it's like, you understand, in the midst of, we have to maintain integrity. You cannot give way to the bloodlust. That just doesn't make sense to me, especially, like I said, I've been watching closely and realizing that, like, there are Christian Palestinians. It's not like all the people in Gaza are just all Muslims. That's not how it works. That's not, there's always been a Christian minority, still is. They're in danger of being wiped out. And it's not as simple as just cut and dry one way. I'm not on the side of terrorists. I don't even really believe in the term. There's some really wicked things people get up to in trying to get their point across. You should never victimize innocent people to try to tell people something. There's it just never works. It just ultimately leads to this cycle of, like, you do violence begets more violence, and it just does. And that's why they suffer. They committed violence, and now violence is being committed against them in an even greater degree. What do they think's going to happen? Even more violence is coming. Guaranteed. Nobody's backing down. Nobody's calling for peace. I mean, some people are, but not around. Not my country. No way. Everybody's gung ho. Okay, I'm telling you, it's a big mistake. I mean, it's going to be destiny for whatever happens, but it's going to cause a lot of suffering. It already is. It is not good to eat much. I've been whatever. Of course, not good to eat much honey. So for men. Wait. Okay. A righteous. I love cold water as a metaphor, of course, of the springs of everlasting water and the new heavens and the new earth. Right. It is a righteous man falling down before the wicked is as a troubled fountain and a corrupt spring. Interesting. Falling down before the wicked as meaning, I assume it meant like in obeisance, like the wicked are in charge and the righteous are like, okay, that is a troubled fountain, a corrupt spring. Yeah, because what should be good is but a fountain of water, a righteous man, right? And that's why, and I'm telling you, when during the pandemic, I hate talking about it, but whatever, to me it was like a seminal moment of my life. It scarred me and changed me and did all kinds of things. I mean, you can watch it happen in real time on my other my channel on Paul Strangini, and see the songs coming out. And if I brought everyone out that I was writing at the time, it would be even more apparent. But like I said, I was, at first I was like, I didn't want old ladies to be scared. So I wore a mask when they asked us to. 2 weeks to slow the spread, or 15 days, or whatever it was, right? I was on board for that, even though I was still conducting my business. I was still, we were technically, since our business is video production, we were a protected industry, essential. So I technically could work, but I traveled unnecessarily to my brother's house, and I brought my children to visit their grandfather throughout the pandemic, who was multiple times exposed and confronted the virus and was fine. It's like, what? We take our risks, you take yours. That's the thing. It's like other people say, well, I just let the government tell me what to do. That's how I take a risk. That's pretty risky. Anyways, but I fought the old ladies. And then after 2 weeks, I thought, well, what about all the people being terrified that their freedoms are being confiscated? I got to show them that we still have freedom. So I started not wearing it. I started disobeying the rules. I protested in my state capitol. I went, whatever. Point is, you can't just let the wicked do their thing. We can't just fall down before them and say, okay, whatever you say. That's why I felt like when I saw people taking a knee to BLM. It's like, come on, because it's not about that. That was just a money shakedown, that thing. Those people are so corrupt. It's taking advantage of other people's pain. That's all that is. Taking advantage of other people's pain. Organizing riots around it. Organizing, misery. And then cashing in on it. It's disgusting. Cashing in on it. It's like, what's it look like up in George Floyd's neighborhood now? They do anything for it? No. They're all living in their mansions, and they don't care about what happens in the neighborhood. Like I said, that's what I see. I see that my song "Some Lives Don't Matter," which was originally titled "Black Lives Don't Matter," because that's what the complaint is, right? I mean, they don't matter. They need to matter. They need to matter. That's the point, right? The truth is, to these elite-minded people, because they're not true elites, nobody's life matters. Not Black lives, that's for sure. And precious few white lives matter to them either. Just the ones close to them, because they're psychopaths. Well, very, very few little people matter. That's the problem with the world. Lives don't matter. I mean, look at what's happening. Like I said, nobody, 30,000 Arabs dead. Who cares if they're Christians or Muslims, right? It's like they were. I mean, they lived in their dirty little country. Who cares, right? I care. I think that's gross. The righteous got to stand up before the wicked. That's the point. You got to stand up to them. An angry countenance for the backbiting tongue. That's what. We don't need troubled fountains. We need fountains that pour out clean water. Speak the truth. Yeah, it's not good to eat much honey. Too much of a good thing, right? So for men to search their own glory is not glory. I said, immediately navel gazing, like, let me tell you about all the things I've accomplished, right? It's very inglorious to be reliving your past glories. You got to go on. You can't just live in the past and search out your own glory and be thinking, if I was sitting around here talking about my football days in high school or some nonsense like that, or what I did last year, it's like what I'm working on now. I mean, what I did last year is good, but it's what I'm still working on. That stuff, a lot of that is still present and now. This, what we're doing now. I would rather glory in my infirmities. And as far as shine a light on that. Because glory is in the sense of something that's very conspicuous and wow, and so when I talk about my own deeds and I glorify them and I raise them up like that, Like Paul says, I would rather glory in my infirmities. I'd rather hold up like, here's my weakness. Let's explore this. And that, because again, I said I have strengths. They're not impressive because I'm strong there. It's like, oh, Paul, it's like he's never committed adultery. Well, he's not really a ladies' man. And that's just it. So it's not like I had, I have to try so hard. I don't have to try hard. So I don't boast in it. My virtue is cheap. Wherever I have cheap virtue, for me to boast there it's kind of gross. I think it's disgusting. It's like, I never do that. I never do that. I never do that. That's why Jesus took sin right down to the bone. He's like, you look on a woman to lust after her. That's adultery. You hate your brother in your heart. You're angry with your brother. I mean, that's right down the road to where you end up killing him. That's how it starts. Calling your brother names, Raka, Nazi, It's true. When we start calling each other names, I mean, actually, the funny thing is to me, well, I don't know. If I were to call someone a Nazi, I would do it sincerely, like, hey, you have, because I'd be like, that's actually the same ideology that they have. I don't like to throw that around. I'd be more likely to call someone fascist because they're fascist, but not a Nazi because it's a very specific kind of fascism. I mean, like someone believes in actual fascism, like kind of a lot of our country is fascist in a lot of ways, right? We've adopted that private-public partnership. Like what the government is doing with the tech giants, like in censoring people, that's fascist. Definitely, totally, that's just fascism right there. They're agreeing and working together. The government is just making suggestions, They're cooperating. It's not the government owns them. That's socialism. No, there's an interplay, The fascist impulse, I guess. Well, it's semi-fascist, like I said. It's like our country is not just a fascist country. It's got these things that are like that, where the government and the private sector are getting too tied together, and then not for the good of the people, which is what it should be ultimately. I mean, if the government is getting together with private actors, it should be for the good of all. But they say that, and then it ends up not being that. It ends up being they collude together to make themselves rich, mostly. So it's not good to search. It's not glorious to search your own glory. To keep a lid on it. Don't, it is more glorious to conceal a matter, to be, like I said, let the king praise you. Let another man's lips praise you, but don't to your own horn. That's not and that's also at the essence of like when we talk about let your light so shine before men versus do not sound a trumpet before you, because there's obviously a different mindset. We don't want to hide the light from people, but on the other hand, we don't want to be these ostentatious, fake, putting on religious airs for people so that we can be seen as that because we find some value socially in being seen as a religious leader. It grosses me out. I don't know why I'm using that phrase so much today. I guess I say it that, well, it's disgusting. It's an abomination. That's what that category is. Because I think I don't want to say, I try not to say things that are, I don't want to be too like against the individual somehow. I want to talk about the way the behaviors are as opposed to the individual. So I go for disgusting because as opposed to the reaction I have as opposed to judging them. He that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls. A defenseless city. You have no rule over your own spirit. That's like no self-control. And that's one of the critical things. This is what I say. This is why God, there's more to it than just your body in sin. Because how does Satan sin? He doesn't have a flesh and blood body. He doesn't get tempted the way we do necessarily, right? You know what I mean? But as far as, is he subject to the same passions that men are? We don't really know what we're going to be like. We don't know how we're going to be. We know that the blood of Christ washes away our sins. And we know that when we see him, we're going to be like him, which is without sin. How exactly we will accomplish this? This is the Lord's. We know that we're going to put on a body that is not corrupt anymore. So that is one huge piece of the puzzle. But also, I guess we have to have a fuller measure of the Spirit, because our spirit also needs to be ruled. Like I said, sometimes you get caught up in anger and your spirit gets overwrought in anger. Like as far as your living life force, the moment to moment life is the spirit that's in you. And you feel, and the feelings drive it in different directions, right? And if that makes sense. And you have to rule it, just like with the anger. I said, be angry and sin not. The spirit of anger is upon you. It could be a righteous spirit of anger, a righteous spirit. But we have to understand our limits. We have to understand that we are not God. We don't render to every man according to his works. But there's a limited amount we allow the government to render, because some things are just we can't have in society. They're too, like I said, it's one thing to be angry with your brother. The Lord will judge that. But if a man rises up against his brother to slay him, we have to stop. We can't allow that person to continue in society. That's the way it works. It's one thing to look on a woman with lust, but it's another thing when someone actually commits adultery. There can be consequences. It can lead to divorce. Yeah, there's a difference, but the analysis goes down to the very depths of our experience. That every idle word is really the level of analysis where we are judged. Thank God, through Jesus Christ, we have passed from judgment to life. And that's a beautiful thing. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be mindful of that fact, though. This is what's been given to us, this beautiful gift. We should be thankful. And the natural outgrowing of that is you get with God in his work, making you his workmanship. And because if we refuse that, then I call into question whether they really believe that he is Lord. I'm not buying it. If you fall away, like I said, your commitment in the beginning, I'm not buying it. People often say yes because they think other people in society want them to say yes. They go to a camp meeting and they get pressured to go forward by their family or whatever, or they just want to please people. Kids often do it to please their parents. And they go through the motions, and, sometimes they fall away. Sometimes they just kind of keep going through the motions. That's sad, because there should be more than that. But, maybe we pray for such people because the Lord can waken them. Like I said, so was I, basically, when I was a young man. I thought I believed in Jesus. I was pretty zealous. And I turned to him in my distress, and then he gave me more zeal. Yeah, a city that is broken down, without walls, that's totally exposed. Anyone can just walk in and loot the city. Any passing army, there's no defense. That's it. And so, and that's a weird thing, because you think like, well, your spirit's in you. Who can intrude into that thing? But when you don't control your spirit isn't in you. It's expressing itself everywhere. And then you become not only it's almost like you are like what they call or one becomes, I don't want to be accusative, but one becomes what they call a attractive nuisance. Meaning you bring attention to yourself, but you're also a danger to you and those around you because of your unruliness of spirit. We have to be ruled. We cannot allow ourselves to just like our impulses to guide us. And that's why I say that what the spirit wants to do often is an impulse, meaning your human spirit that makes you, because we have a spirit. And it is what, God breathed into man the breath of life. That's the spirit, and man became a living soul. Soul is something I regard as more static. Spirit is the vital essence of life, the living life force that comes from God. It's what goes back to God. It is not the entire person either. That's something I believe, that the spirit does not really encompass the whole of you, not without the soul. And ultimately not without a body, too, to put the soul into, to experience. Because the soul can just be, but just being without like a body in which to have the outside world reflected into your being so that you could experience it, like through the sight of the eyes, the hearing of the ears and stuff. That's what they. It's. I think it's interesting the way science starts talking about the word. This is all a simulation. I'm like, how's that? Is that just a roundabout way of just a technological version of God? I mean, it sounds like that to me, because it really is. That's all that is. It's just like, oh, okay, it's a creation, huh? It's just a creation. It's like it's all a simulation. You mean a creation? Because what's the difference? What's the difference between a simulation and a creation? Like when I've made simulations on, Unity using C# programming and stuff, simulated different things, But you create, that's making something, and you need to be able to experience it. And that's why I think the Spirit is very important part of that. That it is the union of those things all together that makes the whole person, and that makes a living person in that meaningful way that we're used to experiencing. Now, there's the spirit body, of course, right? When we come back in the resurrection, we have a different body. There are celestial bodies and terrestrial bodies. And so that's also something to keep in mind. All right, thanks for joining me. Went a bit over today, but we completed this chapter. We're going to go on to 26 tomorrow. Until then, thanks for joining me. And remember, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy.
We wait for the light, but behold, obscurity for brightness, but we walk in darkness. We grope for the wall like the blind, and we grope as if we had no eyes. We stumble at noonday as in the night. We are in desolate places as dead men. We roar all like bears and mourn so like doves. We look for judgments, but there is none for salvation. But it is far off from us, for our transgressions are multiplied before thee, and our sins testify against us, for our transgressions are with us.